The New York Knicks will look to make it 2 wins in a row since the All-Star break when they host a team with the best record in the NBA on Saturday night. That would be the Boston Celtics. So let's talk some Knicks hoops, and we're going to do it with the executive producer of Knicks Film School. That would be Andrew Claudio, who joins me now. Andrew, what is going on?
Dexter, it's always great to talk to you. Thank you for having me.
Same here, man. Always good to see you. Always good to talk some Knicks hoops. And Andrew, this is a big Atlantic Division showdown on Saturday night. You got the first place Celtics versus the second place Knicks. Even with all the injuries the Knickerbockers currently have, is this game a measuring stick for New York?
To an extent, it is. I think what we saw the other night, was a better measuring stick specifically for the Bogdanovich and Burks additions to this team. We've been waiting for a version of this team that was not necessarily fully healthy, because they won't get that until Anunoby and Randall are back, but we just wanted to see what they looked like when they had 6 or 7 of the guys that are going to be in the postseason rotation available to them. And I do think that what the Thursday game against Philly showed was the depth and how they can weaponize it, and Tibbs going to that lineup with Deuce at the 2 and basically 4 guards on the floor in crunch time. So I think there's ways to measure this team against the Celtics. I do think it's tough. Just if they lose against the Celtics, are we going to say, oh, they don't measure up to them because they don't have 2 of their best players, especially the one that I think will be the biggest weapon in Anunoby in a potential postseason series against the Celtics. Now, what I will say is the Celtics can be, we know this, they're very 3-point heavy. And so the variance that could be created with a team like that, I think the Knicks will have a shot if the Knicks are hitting their threes and the Celtics are missing. But I'm very realistic about the fact that even if they lose tonight, it doesn't mean that anything conclusive can be drawn against them,
Right. No, totally understood, and still a long way to go from them getting fully healthy, and we will see how that all plays out. I want to talk to you about Josh Hart because he played well again against the Sixers on Thursday night in the first game following the All-Star break. And earlier this season, Hart talked about wanting to be more involved in the offense. For a player in Hart that doesn't shoot that much for this Knicks team, what have you made of his play this season and his consistency?
Yeah, it's interesting because I've become a bit of a Josh Hart defender throughout this year because every single time he's on the floor, it seems like the things he can't do gets maximized or highlighted more than the things that he does extremely well. And I think it's because he's such a complementary player to other great players that you have on the floor, whether it be Brunson, whether it be Randall. Like, he does all the dirty work. He does all the Tibbsy things that we've come to enjoy. We remember last year the perfect fit he was when he came to this team. And like the lineup data shows that anytime he's on the floor, usually good things happen. Now, the caveat to all that is you need other things around him. Like, you don't build a team around Josh Hart. You put Josh Hart around a team that's already built, I guess is more the way I would put it. So, like, his shooting is a problem if he's expected to be one of your shooters out there. If you have DiVincenzo or Bogdanovich or like Jalen Brunson and Deuce, like that lineup that Tibbs went to in crunch time the other night, if you have like the necessary things that let him, do the things he is good at, the getting out in transition, the help defense that leads to easy buckets, the ability to drive and potentially kick, like all the things that he does well, I think you can see in specific roles when he's asked to do the things he's good at, that he can succeed. The problem is when you're asking him to be, like you mentioned, him wanting to be more involved in the offense. If he's counted on to be one of your floor spacers, you're probably not spacing the floor very well. So, I like that he actually took the 5 threes. He was 2 of 5 from 3 against the Sixers the other night. I would tread lightly with counting on him to be one of your floor spacers going forward. He needs to be a willing shooter. I'm not sure how successful he will be as a shooter. But look, overall, I'm always going to be positive on Josh Hart. I think he's a winning player. I think he's an important player they're going to need come crunch time. And again, just I know I'm going long with this answer, but to speak to the lineup data, like all the great lineups the Knicks had featured Josh Hart. When Quickly was still here, they would go to Hart at the 3, Quickly at the 2, and that was like a plus 30 at one point. When Anunoby was here, Josh Hart at the 2, that lineup was blitzing teams, especially in crunch time. So, I think Josh Hart in general has been a net positive, and if he even shoots a hint toward league average from 3-point range, he becomes even better.
Oh, yeah, if he does that, that's an absolute win for the Knicks and their fans and seeing that. And you talked about him being a willing shooter. We'll see if he does that. But, yeah, I hear you. Maybe not want to go too far with that there just yet.
Right,
Now,
right.
you mentioned this, right, because the Knicks are not at full strength for the matchup with the Celtics. But Knicks fans, they're going to want this victory because it's the C's. What are the keys to New York knocking off Boston on Saturday night?
Hit your threes. That's really the biggest thing I could point to. If they're hitting 40% of their threes, if they're taking a ton of threes. Now, the difficult thing about that, and this is a thing I'm curious how long Tibbs stays with it, is he's been starting the three non-shooters. Speaking of Josh Hart, he's been playing next to Precious Achiuwa and Isaiah Hartenstein in the starting five. And I wonder how well that lineup is going to work against the Celtics, who like to space you out. You're going to have to really outscore the Celtics too, which is a thing you're going to need to do when you're hitting threes. I just look at it that if the Celtics are having an off night from three, which I do think the Knicks defense can give them problems in certain lineups, then you've got a real shot to make this a win. This is where you're going to see if the three-point ability of Bogdanovic and DiVincenzo comes back into play, if Burks comes into play. If you're able to create catch-and-shoot looks for them, corner looks for them, in order to really keep pace with the Celtics, then you've got a shot. I'm skeptical of their ability to stop the Celtics if they're hitting their threes. That's my thought going into this matchup. But we'll see. I watched this Celtics team about a month ago lose to the Lakers at home without LeBron and AD, so they're not unbeatable. But the Knicks are going to have to do their part as well.
Yeah, Knicks are going to have to do their part. We'll see. And as I said, Knicks fans are going to want them to get this victory. I also know Knicks fans, Knicks Nation, would have liked to have seen this matchup with this team in full strength, especially with the playoffs on the horizon. They'd like to see how they match up against the Celtics if the Knicks had all their players. But we're going to have to wait for that if there is a playoff matchup between the two teams. That is Andrew Claudio, executive producer for Knicks Film School, joining me to break down some Knicks basketball and preview Knicks versus Celtics on Saturday night. Andrew, I know you're going to be watching the game. Enjoy the game. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, Dex.